YouTube, huh? Foo. Evil foo. Ooh. Guns. Put that over there. Those things are dangerous. So today, I want to talk to you, or vent my frustrations. I want to talk about the Goldeneye remaster, or it's not really a remaster, but the re-release for the Nintendo Switch Partners Plus, whatever that subscription's called, and then also it's supposed to come as Xbox. So on September 13th, nearly 2 months ago, Xbox and Nintendo did a little joint announcement, but Xbox announced on Twitter, September 13th, the Rare announced it, I think Xbox also announced it, they both, everybody in the world announced it, but no, they officially announced that the GoldenEye is going to be re-released on modern systems. The Xbox and the Nintendo Switch subscription service, whatever the hell it's called. But they said, soon, it's coming, you know, it's coming soon, they said, soon. 2 months later, and no mention of it ever again, is not soon. I mean, the achievements for this thing leaked years ago, and the footage of an actual remaster, like a ground-up remaster, kind of like they did for the Perfect Dark remaster. So it wasn't like a total remake or anything like that. It was just the newer models and textures, things like that. But that leaked years ago. That's not what we're getting. This is just a straight port, basically. But it's going to run at 4K. It'll be 60 frames a second. It'll have the same low polys and the bad textures, things like that. But it's going to perform a lot better. It's going to look a lot better. So just touching on my personal history with the Goldeneye 64 a bit. I was a console guy. I started out on, I was a very, very little kid. I had a Commodore 64. My sister and I shared that. My friend had a NES. And I eventually got my own NES, so I had the NES was or the NES, as some of you people say, which is wrong! But, the NES, I loved it. It was way better than my Commodore. Commodore was great, but I was so young at the time, and I really didn't know what I was doing, and it was a simple joystick and one button, and, I mean, there's a keyboard, but you didn't use that for games. Anyways, long story short, I got a NES, I almost said NES, but, and I was a console guy. I got a Sega Genesis after that. I got super hooked into games once, like Shining Force came out. Shining Force is the first game I ever immediately played again after beating it, like a long story game. I tried to unlock all the different characters and stuff. It was a fantastic game at the time. I love Shining Force. I still to this day love Shining Force. I still play it once every year, every 2 years. I'll play all the way through it. Love that game. I'm just finally playing Shining Force 2 for the first time. Love that. I played Shining Force CD. Long story short, I'm trying to get to the Nintendo. So I had a Genesis, I had the Sega CD, I had a 32X. I also had a Super Nintendo, or a SNES, as you cool kids may say. It had different exclusives on there, and there's certain things that looked better, like Mortal Kombat 2 looked better. That one had the blood. The first one had the blood cut out, and the Nintendo version, they're all sweaty. But like Street Fighter looked better. Then there's exclusive games like Super Castlevania 4, Super Metroid, all kinds of cool games on there. Sega was my preferred platform by far. But I had the Super Nintendo. And then, with my 32X, I got Doom. It introduced me to the world of first-person shooters. I loved it. I was like, wow, this is fantastic. But I found out, and I mean, I could tell, it was obvious, like, the characters weren't fully three-dimensional. They were just, like, just the front part of them were rendered. So no matter where you went, or went around the corner or whatever, enemies were always facing you. You could never get behind anybody or to the side of anybody. And the screen was really small. Like, instead of being full screen, the window was really small. The music was bad, the sound effects were bad, but I still loved the game. It's like, wow, this is fantastic. So, I was just a kid at the time, but my family owned restaurants when I was a kid. They don't anymore. Well, I guess that side of the family. I don't have any contact with that side of my family anymore. But, so I always had money. I was always working, I guess, child labor laws. They'd probably be considered illegal in my work, but I wasn't working hard or anything like that, and it wasn't like slave labor. But, so I always had a little bit extra money. So I bought myself well, I found out the computer version of Doom was way, way better. So I bought myself a 46DX2 computer. It was like top of the line at the time. It was super expensive. I knew nothing about computers, but I knew Doom ran much better on that. And I fell in love with Doom. It was amazing to me on the 32X. So I bought, by the time I got my computer and 32X had came out, the version of Doom on there, Doom 2 was actually coming out on the computer. So I got a brand new computer. Doom 2 either just came out or was coming out at the time I bought my computer. Maybe not for a few months already, I don't remember. But so I got Doom 2, I got Doom 1, later I got like Duke Nukem 3D, I got Dark Forces, Heretic, hexing, things like that. But my point is, I got Doom. I fell in love with Doom. Doom was fantastic. Well, finally, after playing strictly computer games pretty much for about a year, I was super into first-person shooters, especially Doom 1 and 2, Dark Forces, and Duke Nukem 3D. That was my jam right there. Once Hexen came out, like the sequel to Heretic, it was already starting to the point where like you needed a Pentium processor, maybe even a graphics card. I don't think that one took graphics cards, but my processor was a little slow. My memory was a little bit slow by that time. I didn't really like computers anyways. There are the cool things you could do, but I preferred gaming on a TV with a joystick, or a controller, in a chair, comfortable, light gun games, things like that. So computer didn't have a lot of that stuff. But once the Sega Saturn came out and the PlayStation, I immediately grabbed both of those and I started playing 3D games. I mean, I'd already played 3D games in the arcades and things like that. But then, so a year or so after they had come out, Nintendo 64 came out. I wasn't impressed. The graphics to me looked very blurry, and I was just kind of, at that time I was like a teenager, so I was like too cool for Nintendo. Nintendo was kind of viewed, I guess it still is to this day a little bit, but I think it's more widely accepted now because people can just learn to have fun and geek out instead of being so wound up and tight ass about things. But at the time, my young immature self, I thought I was too cool for Nintendo, so I didn't have any interest in Nintendo 64 at all. Like I said, I thought it looked blurry and everything. But once Turok came out, I saw Turok. I don't know if I saw it in magazines. I think I saw ads in magazines. So I thought this looks pretty cool. So I started reading reviews of Turok, and it says really good and cool and everything. And like I said, when I was playing first-person shooters on the PC, they were still sprite-based. So 3D graphics still looked to me a lot better. I thought, wow, because this is before Quake had come out or anything like that on the PC, so everything was still sprite-based. So I was blown away by Turok in the magazines and stuff. Like, wow, this looks fantastic. I think I saw a commercial on TV even for it. So I went out and I bought a Nintendo 64 and Turok. That's why I bought it specifically for Turok. Went home, the music started playing. I am Turok. Even the Iguana, like one of I think it was Acclaim Austin or something like that. They were Iguana Studios at the time, the developers. Even their logo comes up, like some arrows get shot at the iguana and it runs off and stuff like that. It was fantastic. The sound effects, the graphics, everything blew me away. Like there was like fog just like 15 feet in front of you. Couldn't see anything past that. But totally worth it to me for the immersion of the 3D and the intensity and the sound effects of the guns and the animations on the guns and everything was fantastic. It was brutal. It was really good. So it was well worth the investment of the Nintendo 64 just for Turok. Later, I got Zelda Ocarina of Time, which it was a fantastic game too. But once Goldeneye came out, I tried Goldeneye. I heard great things about it. So I bought Goldeneye, and it was even better than Turok. It was fantastic. I know a lot of people will say Goldeneye hasn't aged well. Oh, here's my Nintendo 64, by the way. It still has Turok 2 in there right now. I have Goldeneye and Turok and all my other Nintendo 64 games. But you can't see what I'm looking at, but there's a bunch of storage boxes behind me here, or behind the camera. Somewhere in there are my games. But this is, I have all my systems in front of my TV. So I had this one out and I just had Turok 2 is the game that I have sitting in the cartridge slot. But anyways, Goldeneye was fantastic. But people say it's aged terribly and stuff like that. For one, it was running on super weak hardware. Like Nintendo 64 was pretty weak. At least as far as like texture memory, and they didn't have great sound or music or anything like that because they were still using cartridges, because Nintendo wanted to have the iron fist control of the manufacturing of everything. These games got super expensive because of that, by the way, because memory was expensive back then. But they didn't want to have a CD drive, which is why the PlayStation exists. But that's different. That's not what I'm talking about right now. What I'm talking about right now is GoldenEye. GoldenEye was fantastic. Four-player split screen was super fun. I started dating my ex-wife. I've been divorced since 2003, so that was a long time ago, before most people were even born. But, not most people, but most people watching this probably. I've been divorced since 2003. But we used to play split screen. It was just fantastic. We were dating at the time. It was fantastic. Super fun experience. Absolutely loved GoldenEye. Like I said, people say, oh, it's aged terribly, but that's because it was running it with weak hardware. It was running 20 frames a second on average, probably, maybe down to 10 frames a second on some scenes and stuff like that. And your controls, you were limited to this monstrosity. I mean, it was very innovative at the time because it had the 3D stick on there, the analog stick. But it was a monstrosity. Luckily, Rare, they were super awesome. They let you do anything you want with your controls. You could actually do 2 of these, one in each hand, and have actual dual analog controls. So that was the first game really to have, but there's a trigger on the back of this. It was still cumbersome like that, so I just used the Turok controls, which is why Turok taught me to play inverted, and I play standard now, but for years I played inverted because of Turok and Nintendo 64. But anyways, yeah, so people that say it's aged terribly, that's because it was running at a terrible frame rate and had this as a controller. Why I want the remaster, or the re-release, I guess it more like, you're on a dual analog controls now. It's going to be 60 frames a second at least. It's going to be 4K. It's going to be super buttery smooth. Yes, the polygon graphics are going to be simplistic. Yes, the textures are going to be simplistic. But it's a retro game. That kind of stuff's awesome. I love old games. That's fantastic. So I've been super looking forward to this. Goldeneye is pretty much the only Pierce Brosnan James Bond movie I like. I like the one with Michelle Yeoh in it. And Jonathan Pryce, the bad guy, was that Tomorrow Never Dies, I think. But just because I like the other cast members. And the guy that plays Hagrid was in there. I think he was Valentine or something like that. But I didn't really like Pierce Brosnan. To me, he's way too much of a girly man. Like, I loved Sean Connery. Sean Connery, and actually Timothy Dalton, I thought, did a fantastic job. People don't like Timothy Dalton, but I thought he was great. And then Daniel Craig. Those are my favorites. Roger Moore was James Bond when I was a kid. So he was like the James Bond I grew up with. But I've overcome that and realized he was kind of a silly jackass. Great guy and everything, but not the macho, tough, cold-blooded James Bond that I fell in love with. So yeah, I'm super excited for the GoldenEye re-release. I want it badly. I want it on a modern system with modern controls. It really sucks the Nintendo Switch version, which is awesome for Switch players. That is going to have multiplayer, online multiplayer. The Xbox version, and I think it's because Nintendo would have to sign off. Nintendo owns the licensing. There's a huge licensing kerfuffle, or whatever you want to say, a mess around GoldenEye, which is why it hasn't been released before now, and why it's simultaneously releasing on Nintendo and Xbox. Nintendo has to basically give their blessing for anything, so I don't think they would let Xbox do an online multiplayer component. But it could just be Xbox cheaping out too. Xbox cheaps out with a lot of the games they don't have a lot of confidence in, like the Phantom Dust. They're doing a Phantom Dust remake or reboot. They canceled that, and that studio closed in. They closed a bunch of studios, but even the Phantom Dust remaster, almost, that's not really remaster, re-release, was cheap. It was done cheaply. Something like Battletoads, which is a franchise I loved as a kid. Battletoads is fantastic. I hated the art style when I first saw the Battletoads, the new Battletoads game. But once I played it, was actually, the graphics are actually charming. They're well animated, super well animated. The characters have great personality. They butchered the Dark Queen, or whatever she is, the bad guy. She was like overly sexualized and stuff like that in the old games, but that was just her character. It would be like taking, and now she's like just completely non-sexual at all, which is fine. It's a kid's game or whatever. Doesn't, think shouldn't be sexualized, but it's kind of like having like Jessica Rabbit, and all of a sudden now she's, flat as a board and has no ass, no curves, or no sultry attitude or anything like that. But she's wearing the same dress and has the same hair. Basically, that's what it would be the equivalent of. So I think that was a mistake. But otherwise, the game was fantastic. But they cheaped out with the development of it. The development studios, like Delala Studios, did that. It was a passion project for them. They went to Xbox and asked if they could do it. But Xbox didn't give them enough money to do online multiplayer. And this is like, it released right at the beginning of COVID, so everybody's locked down at home, and nobody can play this Battletoads game. And everybody that played Battletoads as a kid, like me, we're all adults now. We've all moved over all over the different places, the countries and worlds. We don't have, our friends can't just come over for couch co-op. We want to play. I have so many friends I play with online. Those are my online buddies, my game-playing buddies. So any game that doesn't come out with online pisses me off. So it's a shame that GoldenEye, I know this is the movie, not the game, but it's not going to have online, but I still want it. I still want this very badly, the GoldenEye re-release. I think it's going to be fantastic. It'll be a lot of fun running through the campaign. Split screen co-op will work. I doubt if I'll ever play that. I have one local buddy that I game with sometimes, but I haven't seen him in years now. But yeah, maybe eventually. I'm supposed to be moving to Florida next year, either Florida or Vegas. I'm not sure yet. But I have a friend down there. If I do move to Florida, we can do some online gaming or some actual couch co-oping. But my point is, I want GoldenEye. You said soon, Xbox. You said soon. Give me GoldenEye. I love old classic games. Like I buy all the Night Dive Studios remakes. They did the Turok and Turok 2 and Shadow Man. What else? They're doing Soul Reaver. They're doing Soul Reavers. It's gonna be fantastic. but they're doing System Shock. That's actually a remake, the System Shock remake. But anything Night Dive Studios does, they did like Doom 64, Quake. They're fantastic. They're great. So I buy all this. I love these old classic games. So I would love Goldeneye 64 running at a great frame rate, high definition. This is going to be fun. So yeah, Xbox, stop fucking around and release the goddamn game like you said you would. Or I'm going to have to use my evil kung fu. Nobody wants that.
I hate to see you go, but I love to watch you leave.
Fuck this shit, I'm out. Fuck this shit, I'm out. No thanks. Don't mind me. I'ma just grab my stuff and leave. Excuse me, please. Fuck this shit, I'm out. Fuck this shit, I'm out.